So a chord, now you know how to find any major chord, and by proxy you can find the minor chord by just changing the note in the middle, down a half step. But difficulty is each chord can be played at the different order of the notes. Let's take chord C. It's made up of C, E, G. Here it's written in bass clef, C, E, G. These are the fingerings you use for the right hand, 1, 3, 5, and 5, 3, 1. If I decide to put the C here on top, the C here on top, I'm playing a different order of the same three notes. Instead of C at the bottom, E in the middle, and G on top, I play E at the bottom, G in the middle, and C I displace it on top. It's called an inversion, but it's the same chord. It's still C chord. And those of you who do want to practice this, the fingering is all there. In the right hand we use the index, in the left hand we use the middle finger. That's called the first inversion. That's written. But it's still C chord. And so in some popular jazz standards, you might see this with a little slash. So when you have a slash, whatever comes to the right side of the slash is the note that is at the bottom. The note at the bottom is E, but it's still C chord. Whatever's on the left side of your slash is the name of your chord. It's still C chord. You just move the C on top, so E becomes the bottom note. Slash E. And then here you see the same C chord, but the G now note is at the bottom, as demonstrated. This is G. And then it's still the same combination of C, E, G in different orders. So G at the bottom, and then C and E here on top. That's called second inversion. Still made up of C, E, and G now at the bottom. Still C chord. Second inversion, we call it. So take this page if you want to improve your technique, and especially if you want to accompany yourself playing something. So what did I do here? I did an inversion and then a root position, the original. So my right hand was playing this one, and my left hand was playing this one. And I can go. Okay, I can go. And I can already sing a whole ton of stuff. Right? So if you want to practice it also for your G chord, here they are written. G, B, and D makes up your G chord. But if you put the G on top, it's an inversion of the G, since you're repeating G, B, and D, just different order. G is on top, and B and D. So the chord symbol is G / note B at the bottom. And again, it's called first inversion. And you keep inverting, then you got the D note at the bottom, and the GB here on top. It's still G chord, but the note D is at the bottom, so /D. That's called second inversion. And so now you see that you could do the same thing for the F chord. Now, why do I show this? Because, in particular, most books for adults choose this inversion of the F, the second inversion. And they choose this inversion for the G, because the C chord and the F chord and the G chord are the most popular chords in any song. They're called primary chords. Primary. They're all major chords. And if you are in the key of C, C is 1, C, D, E, F. F is 4, G is 5. Chord 1, 4, and 5 are the most popular chords in any song. Most of the cheat sheets songs that you have up until level 5 is made up of these 3 chords. So most books would take this inversion of the F, the last one here, the second inversion, and they would take this inversion of the G. Why is that? There's a reason, so that you're moving less. So instead of going C chord to the F chord by moving the entire hand, I'm doing the inversion. So I'm moving this C all the way down here. Now I got the inversion of F, right? F was originally here. We call that root position. Moving that down. Notice the fingering in the left hand, the right hand. Why do I choose that inversion? It's because when I'm coming from C, I only have to move slightly, and I got that F, instead of having to move the entire hand. So this is another thing that I like you to practice every day, now that the explanations for chord inversions is there. Moving from C to F, chord 1 to chord 4, and back, many times. Do it one hand first, and mainly do it in the left hand, if you don't have a lot of time. Then how about the chord G? What inversion is that? It was the inversion where I switched these 2 bottom for the next 2 bottom. There's just a finger change that I have to be warned of. The right hand, it's a index. Okay, so again, C to the G chord, the simple G chord, is moving these 2 fingers down by 1 notch. But there's just a finger that you need to change, because correct fingering is important. This is a G chord. But still, this is a hard chord for the left hand, because you're kind of like this in C. I'm curling fingers so that you see better which keys don't curl fingers like I do. And then you have to move pinky and middle down. It's still too hard for most beginners, so most books do a fancy version of the G chord. It's called the G7 chord. And we still move the pinky down by 1 notch, but instead of moving this one down, we're switching that one for the index. And that's the one that most folks right here, the G7 chord. It's easier to play this than this, the G chord. So do practice C to G7 a lot. If you are returning students and you've done that already, and you pretty much can go from C to F to G7 to C pretty easily like that, then I recommend you practice also this G, the simple G, which is moving these 2 fingers down by 1 notch. And call your chords. I'm moving from C to G, back to C, to G7, back to C, to F, back to C. At least do left hand every day. F chord, left hand. Okay? And that song, the beginning is really easy, by the way. So we'll do another recording for that song. But all the chords you need is the C, the F, either G7 or G, because G7 or G is just a fancy version. And here's the explanation. That's your G chord, right? Fancy means 1 one more note. G7 has four notes. We just invert it. We put the G up here instead. We inverted the G7, and then we say, well, that's hard to play, so let's take off that finger. And that's how most books does. That's why your G7 is such a way. They took out this note because it's hard on a hand. But it's just, originally the G7 is a simple G chord with another note escape away. That's what a chord is. Basically, skipping alphabet letter. G to B to D to F is G7 originally. But the most books invert that up and then take away this one, and you end up with the B, F, G. So it's important to practice and know what chords you're playing. You're going to come back to those chords a lot. So that's one of the way to get your technique going, so you can advance a little more.